We've all been told that overthinking is bad, but is it always? In this episode of the 3am show, I dive deep into the difference between toxic overthinking and healthy reflection. I share two powerful stories. Ronald Wayne, the Forgotten Apple co founder, who sold his 10% stake for just $800 back in 1976, a decision that would be worth $250 billion today, and the story of a man who lived the perfect life with no bad habits but died young at the age of 37 because he spent every night worrying about things he couldn't control. The truth is, being well thought out about your decisions is vital, but constant worry kills joy, health, and life itself. This episode is about finding balance, thinking things through without letting your mind trap you. If you've ever laid awake at night replaying the same thought loops, this one's for you. Here's the thing, overthinking is when your brain doesn't stop running. It's when you replay the same scenario in your head again and again until you're paralyzed. It's worry, it's fear, and it's a constant voice that whispers behind your ears. But being thoughtful, really thinking things through, that's different. That's wisdom. That's the part of the brain which says, wait, let me not just react, let me reflect. Let me give you an example. At the time, it seemed logical. He didn't want to take the risk, but he didn't also want the responsibility. But today, that same 10% would be worth $250 billion. Think about that. One of the biggest opportunities missed in history. Now, here's the point. Wayne didn't take enough time to really weigh his decision. He was quick to pull out because of fear. This is why thoughtful reflection matters. Sometimes taking that extra moment to breathe, to pause, to really change your life. But here's the thing. But here's the other side. I once heard about a man who lived what people called a perfect life. He never smoked, never drank, never stayed up too late, no junk food, no bad habits. He was disciplined to the core, but at the age of 37, he died. Why? Because every single night he spent hours worrying about the future, worrying about the past, and worrying about the things which are completely out of his control. He literally worried himself to death. His body just couldn't take it anymore. And which is why chronic stress, overthinking floods your system with cholesterol, the stress hormone, and interacts your immune system, your sleep, and your heart. It eats you alive from the inside out. So yes, being thoughtful is very important, but endless worry, that's poison. I'll be honest with you. I've been there. I've been the guy who stayed awake at night, eyes wide open at 3 a.m., thinking about the things, thinking about all the ways my life would go wrong. And you know what it gave me? Insomnia, anxiety, and a restless mind. This has been backed by Dr. Kate, who is a very famous psychiatrist and also who has lived half of his life as a monk. He talks about this on his YouTube channel. The more you overthink, the more you screw up. In society, we are taught IQ or overthinking leads to success. In fact, we actually assume sometimes that thinking leads to increase in performance. But if you look at the data, it's often the opposite. Overthinking often leads to failure. So there's a common misagenda. If I think about my problems enough, I will eventually figure out a solution. But we don't really realize that thinking isn't the best way to get a solution. This data was backed by an organization called Mensa. Only 2% people in the world with the highest IQ are the ones who are able to join Mensa. There are often times when people theory craft their way into a solution. So what we learn from this is IQ or overthinking isn't a substitute for real work. Just thinking about things isn't going to lead to better performance in various areas, like social anxiety. We use thought as a substitute for learning. If you've ever thought that overthinking your way to a solution, that is not possible. Just thinking may impede your chances of success. No amount of intellectual masturbation will teach you anything. So if you reach out to me after this episode, say, but Raghav, in many companies, people brainstorm all the time to come up with new ideas. Isn't that technically overthinking? Guys, brainstorming is a directional form of overthinking. So any company with any meetings or any other brainstorming sessions, if you've ever had, they always have an aim, a duration, and a closure. And then everyone is on their own way thinking about different things. So the only safe solution to this is to give your brain data. You want to give your brain things to learn, which will replace overthinking. Here's what I've learned: overthinking doesn't change your past, it doesn't guarantee a future. All it does is steal the peace you have today. So instead, here's what I try to do now: I write down what's under my control and what's not. If it's not under my control, I let it go. Every single morning before I start my work, I journal, and at the end of the day, I write down things which I overthought during that day. So this is an exercise which I recommend everyone to do. Take 15 minutes meeting with your brain, just you and your thoughts alone every single day. Get a copy and pen and write down the aim of overthinking, a step-by-step procedure to solve the problem. If there's no solution, then just forget about the problem. Because otherwise, you will constantly be stuck in the cycle of looping. So if you don't want to be stuck in the cycle, go for a run, go for a walk, or do anything which requires movement, because movement breaks that cycle. Because worrying is like sitting in a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere. So here's my message to you tonight. Don't stop thinking, don't stop reflecting, but don't let worry control your life. Be thoughtful, not fearful. Learn from your mistakes, but don't replay them forever. Because life is short and you deserve peace. Thank you so much for listening. If tonight's episode resonated with you, share it with someone you love. And if you ever want to talk to me one-to-one about something, the link to book a call with me is in the description. And as always, the question I ask: if you had 2 minutes and the whole world was listening to you, what would you say? This is Raghav, and thank you for being here with me.